It's day 62, challenge number 39 of this food challenge tour, and today, it's a heck of a challenge, because not only is it a massive schnitzel challenge, but if I'm able to finish it all, I'll not only get the meal for free, and not only will I be on their wall of fame, but I'll also get 100 euros cash. Which, if that happens to be the case, I'll try my best not to spend it all on chocolate like the fat kid that I am. What's going on? This is Magic Mitch, and in this food adventure, I'm at XXL Essen und Trinken in Bremerhaven, Germany, taking on their Schnitzel challenge. Now, it's pretty straightforward. You have a 2.5 kilo schnitzel, which is about 5.5 pounds. Now, the garnish and the veggies, they're not required for this one. You just have to finish the schnitzel. And if you're able to do that within the 2-hour time limit, as I mentioned previously, you get the meal for free, you get on their wall of fame, and you also get 100 euros cash. And that's a solid setup, which is why I'm going to give this one a thumbs up, because you have all the time in the world to finish this thing. And it's certainly an enticing challenge with that cash prize just luring you in. Now, just because I do think it is a great challenge on how it's structured does not make it an easy one. Because first of all, while it is 2.5 kilos of schnitzel, that's the weight before it's fried in the oil and the breadcrumbs. And taking that into consideration, if I had guessed, I would probably put this a little under the 3 kg mark, which is about 6.6 pounds. So yeah, a little under that. And as for the 2-hour time limit, I mean, if you need it and you can use it, then by all means do it. But in my experience, it's extremely difficult to take advantage of anything over an hour, because at that point, I've pretty much already pushed my food fighting abilities to the max. And I have a pretty good idea at that point of where I stand and if I'll be able to finish whatever's left over or not. But it's always better to have it and not need it than the other way around. And in this case, I wasn't looking to bite off more than I could chew, especially since I was still feeling the effects of the nacho challenge the previous day. And, well, quite frankly, this tour as a whole was starting to catch up with me. But I wasn't going to let that deter me from taking this thing down. And that's what I proceeded to do, by chomping away at this giant schnitzel, one piece at a time. And let me tell you, right out of the gate, I was fairly pleased with what my taste buds were telling me. The meat itself, it was pretty juicy, tender, and flavorful. It was definitely checking off all the right boxes, and the breading wasn't half bad either. Though, it did seem like there was a lot of breading on this thing, especially compared to the previous schnitzel challenge I did earlier on this trip, and at times, it almost felt like I was eating a giant chicken tender, especially when I'd be taking bites, I would just be eating more crunchy fried batter than meat, especially around the edges. Again, not a bad thing flavor-wise, but it was going to make it more difficult to chew through than I initially thought. And hey, I'm far from being a schnitzel expert, so let me know in the comments down below your assessment of this schnitzel. Speaking of which, while I was eating this thing, I wanted to focus on eating as much as I could without the use of any sauces, at least in the beginning, because I didn't want to get full from using extra sauces that, really, I didn't need to be using, and I wanted to keep my palate cleansers for later on once flavor fatigue started to creep in. And once that did eventually happen, I brought in the brown gravy, baby. And once I did that, it added a nice additional layer of flavor to the schnitzel. It also helped keep the schnitzel warm too, since it had already cooled down pretty significantly at this point in the challenge. And while the gravy was very much welcome to my taste buds, I could still start to feel a sense that my food fighting abilities, they were starting to waver. But I continued on, taking more bites out of this giant schnitzel, and of course, when I absolutely needed to, I called in the tried and true Diet Coke for reinforcements, to not only help cleanse my palate once again, but to help bring out any pockets of air in my stomach, just so I could have more room for that schnitzel. And as I continued chomping away at this thing, I wasn't sure if it was the schnitzel at the time or the nachos from yesterday, but something was starting to fight back against my body. So I deployed some mind tactics by even going as far as to remove the extra garnish that's not required, just so I could hone in and focus on the schnitzel. And if these little cheeky tactics of sorts seem a bit trivial or unnecessary, I'm just gonna lay it out there and call it like it is. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I mean, even though that this trip has been the most intense food challenge tour I've ever done, I still have my sights set on completing every single food challenge on this trip. Now, I did fail a burrito challenge earlier on this trip, but I took it down in a rematch the very next day, so technically, I was still on track to accomplish my goal. But man, trying to overcome all these different obstacles, both physical and mental, they were definitely not making things easy. And I even got to the point where I stood up, just to make sure that I was making the full use of my stomach space. And it wasn't too long after that I started to realize, while this challenge is against the food, it was time itself that was the bigger enemy here. Yeah, sure, I had 2 hours to finish this giant schnitzel challenge, but between the schnitzel being cooled off, which made it a bit more chewy, and my slower eating pace this far into the challenge, and the mix of feeling full, tired, exhausted, and just overcome with flavor fatigue, it was becoming painfully clear. My body was not in the food fighting shape it needed to be in to take this giant schnitzel down. So I reluctantly decided to throw in the white flag and admit defeat. Now, while the outcome for this challenge wasn't ideal, if you enjoyed watching this video, embark on another video and I'll see you there.